Welcome to HDS 105, Topics in World History since 1914. Section 1, Background to the First World War. Introduction. In this study section, you will learn about the events that would have degenerated into global war since 1871, but averted through diplomacy and understandings until the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand and his wife at Sarajevo in 1914. This event, in spite of the important roles played by the European leaders, polarized Europe into two distinct camps, namely the Triple Alliance and Triple Entente, such that by the eve of 1914, the tension in Europe already made it glaring that outbreak of war was a matter of time. Learning outcomes. When you have studied this section, you should be able to describe the cause and consequence of Prussia's defeat of France in 1871, point out the effect of national prestige on balance of power in Europe, highlight the reasons for the emergent alliances in Europe, explain the effect of the Balkan crisis in the outbreak of the First World War, discuss the role of the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand and his wife in the outbreak of the war. Prussia defeat of France in 1871. The Franco-Prussia War, how it happened. The events that culminated into the Franco-Prussia War of 1871 stemmed from the vacant throne of Spain, which was built to be taken over by Prince Leopold, a relative of the Prussian king. The news of his acceptance provoked France. France's Emperor Napoleon III demanded the prince's rejection. Not satisfied with this arrangement, France ordered her ambassador to see the king for confirmation and to secure an assurance that his relative would not again offer himself as candidate. The French emperor felt humiliated. The first major event that set the stage for suspicion and alliances in Europe was the humiliating defeat of France by Prussia in the Franco-Prussian War of 1871. The emperor at this period was not enjoying favorable image both at home and abroad. Therefore, he went to battle with Prussia. France declared war and mobilized troops against Prussia. Unknown to the French emperor, Prussia was battle-ready, crossed the French borders, and defeated France's army at two important places, Sedan and Metz. Thereafter, Bismarck succeeded in unifying Germany after the crowning of King William I of Prussia as the Emperor of United Germany. The Treaty of Frankfurt, 1871. Following the defeat of France at the battles of Sedan and Metz, she signed the humiliating Treaty of Frankfurt, by which she ceded her two important territories of Alsace and Lorraine to Prussia. She agreed to pay £200 million as war indemnity in installments until its final settlement agreed for Prussian army occupation of her soil. Shift in balance of power. Germany was unified by Bismarck after the crowning of King William I of Prussia as the Emperor of United Germany. The consequence of this, however, was that France's diplomatic objectives were directed at circumventing Germany, particularly the need to curb the growing might of Germany in Europe. Besides, the need to regain her lost territories made France to enter friendship with other European nations in order to achieve her objectives against Germany. Thus, the existing balance of power in Europe began to be threatened. National rivalries. In the 19th and 20th century, aggressive nationalism and national prestige also manifested in economic competition and colonial conflict, fueling dangerous rivalries among the major European powers. The industrialized nations of Europe competed for foreign markets and engaged in tariff wars. The Rivalries. Apart from economic competition, an expensive naval race further exacerbated tensions between Germany and Britain. The two nations convinced themselves that naval power was imperative to secure trade routes and protect merchant shipping. Thus, the German authorities undermined naval skill of the British by announcing their readiness to build a fleet with many large battleships. The British responded through the construction of super battleships known as dreadnoughts. Colonial disputes. Economic rivalries fomented colonial competition. During the late 19th and early 20th century, European nations searched aggressively for new colonies or dependencies to bolster economic performance. Starting with Belgium in the Congo east of Africa, virtually all the major powers engaged in the scramble for empire. As it would be recalled, Germany, a unified nation only since 1871, embarked on the colonial race, belatedly but aggressively insisting that it too must have its place in the sun. Germany's imperial efforts were frustrated, however, by the simple fact that British and French imperialists had already carved up most of the world. The disputes that arose from these competitions nearly resulted into war, but for the Berlin Conference of 1884 to 1885, which was called at the instance of Otto von Bismarck of Germany to resolve all disputes associated with European competitions for colonies in Africa. Due to a basic desire for security, intense national rivalries and nationalist aspirations of subject minorities spawned a system of entangling alliances. While national interest guided the search for allies, each nation viewed its fulfillment of treaty obligations as crucial to self-preservation. Though intended to preserve the peace, rival alliances systems created a framework whereby even a small international crisis could set off a chain reaction leading to global war. Thus, by 1914, Europe's major powers had transformed themselves into two hostile camps: one, the Triple Alliance, and two, the Triple Entente. The Triple Alliance. The Triple Alliance, also known as the Central Powers, grew out of the close relationships that developed between the leaders of Germany and Austria-Hungary during the last decades of the 19th century. In 1879, the governments of the two empires formed the Dual Alliance, a defensive part that ensured reciprocal protection from Russian attack and neutrality in case of an attack from any other power. Fear of a hostile France motivated Germans to enter into this part, whereas Austrians viewed it as giving them a free hand in pursuing their Balkan policies without fear of Russian intervention. Italy, fearful of France, joined the Dual Alliance in 1882, thereby transforming it to the Triple Alliance of Germany, Austria, and Italy. The Triple Entente. Although, with the formation of the Triple Alliance, the Central Powers sought to protect the political status quo in Europe, but the leaders of other nations viewed the constellation of power with suspicion. This response was especially true of French leaders who neither forgot nor forgave France's humiliating defeat during the Franco-Prussian War of 1870 to 1871. Therefore, French government was determined to curb the growing might of Germany. Besides, the Tsarist regime of Russia was equally disturbed by the new alignment of powers, especially by Germany's support of Austria, while British leaders were traditionally suspicious of any nation that seemed to threaten the balance of power on the continent. The result was that the most unlikely bedfellows formed the Triple Entente. the Eastern Question and Balkan Crisis. The Balkan Crisis, which was a prelude to the outbreak of the First World War, could be traced to the Eastern Question. It could be recalled that the Balkan Peninsula, which once formed a part of the Eastern Roman Empire, remained as an integral part of the Turkish Empire. By the early 19th century, following the fresh wave of nationalism that swept over Western Europe, the Christian subjects of the Balkan Peninsula, who had suffered in the hands of the sultans of Turkey, also longed to be free from the tyranny of the Turkish sultans. In addition, Russia from the days of Peter the Great had been eager to bring about the downfall of the Turkish emperor and expand her own empire. However, there are other European powers, especially Britain and France, who were equally eager to thwart Russian ambition in order to maintain the delicate balance of power in Europe. Thus, Turkey was a sick man of Europe at this period, waiting to be shared by other powers. Subsequently, three aspects dominated what is popularly called the Eastern Question, namely: 1. The decline of the Ottoman Empire, 2. The rise of Christian nations in the Balkans against Turkish masters, and 3. The Balkan crisis, as well as the intrigues of the big powers. The First Balkan War, 1912. Prior to 1914, Greece, Serbia, and Bulgaria formed the Balkan League to protect themselves from the future Turkish onslaughts. Turkey at this period was alarmed at the prospect of a prolonged war she had to wage, so she sued for peace in 1912 and signed the Treaty of Lausanne with Italy. In spite of this, Montenegro declared war on Turkey. As a result, Turkey sued for peace and on May 30th, 1913, signed the Treaty of London. Subsequently, Turkey lost almost all her possessions in Europe, which she had ruled for more than 5 centuries. The Second Balkan War, 1913. Bulgaria's relation with Romania, her northern neighbor, got strained because they later demanded a small strip of territory. When Bulgaria refused to grant this demand, Romania declared war on Bulgaria. Turkey joined Romania and Serbia. Greece and Montenegro also joined the fray. All these powers defeated Bulgaria, and she agreed to sign a treaty. The Treaty of Bucharest was signed in 1913. Subsequently, Turkey got back the city and fort of Adrianople. Serbia and Greece got large chunks of Bulgarian territories. Romania, which started the war, received the territories that she had earlier demanded from Bulgaria. The Bulgarians were humiliated, and their bitterness towards our oppressors increased. Balkan crisis as a prelude to the First World War. The major powers in Europe watched this development in the Balkans with fingers crossed after several futile attempts to broker peace had been moved. Bitter hostilities continued unabated. Serbia was backed by Russia regarding the claims over Bosnia and Herzegovina, and Austria-Hungary was not prepared to cede them at any cost. Thus, Serbia's desire of annexing the two principalities dashed to the ground. This, of course, increased the tension in the Balkans up to the eve of the assassination of Sarajevo in 1914. The Sarajevo assassination of 28 June 1914. The mother of Archduke Ferdinand, Crown Prince of Austria, and his wife on the streets of Bosnia capital, Sarajevo engulfed the world into a great conflict. Scholars have described this heinous crime as the immediate cause of the First World War. Backed by Germany, Austria issued an ultimatum to Serbia for apprehending the criminals who were hiding in Serbia and handing them over to the Austrian authorities. Serbia rejected the ultimatum, and after the stipulated time, Austria attacked Serbia. Russia mobilized her troops to defend Serbia and warned Austria of serious consequences. Germany entered the arena to defend Austria, and shortly all the powers in the hostile camps, Triple Alliance and Triple Entente, were automatically drawn into war. This marked the beginning of the First World War that shook the global peace for 4 years, 1914 to 1918. Study section summary. In Unit 1, you have learned that 1. Prussia's defeat of France in 1871 marked the beginning of the remote causes of the First World War. 2. National prestige as epitomized by race for colonies, naval race and economic competitions intensified the tension among the European nations of the 20th century. 3. Formation of alliances of protection against aggression polarized European nations into Triple Alliance and Triple Entente groups. 4. The Eastern Question and the Balkan crisis further increased the tension and suspicion in the whole of Europe. 5. The assassination of Archduke Ferdinand was the last straw that broke the camel back as far as the factors that caused the First World War was concerned. This is the end of Studies Section 1. Thanks for listening.